Hello and welcome to my hot takes on the Ikoria spoilers and my ratings for every rare and mythic, plus a few notable commons and uncommons. So with this video here, I'm gonna rate each card based off of how much I reckon it's going to see play. And in 3 months' time, when the next set comes out, or just before, I'm going to review myself and see just how wrong I was. I guess I'll probably be pretty wrong. Now keep in mind, this is all for standard. I'm kind of ignoring the Eternal formats and EDH pretty much completely. I might make a few comments on it, but I know standard the most and it's what I most want to comment on. So we're just going to go with that. So my ratings kind of go on a 1 to 5. So if I give a card a 1 star, no one even attempts playing this card. Giving it a 2. Some people make some brews early on based around this, but it'll be dropped in about a week. Giving it a rating of 3 stars, it'll be a 1 to 2 of in some decks, or maybe a 4 of in the fringe deck throughout standard. Giving it a 4 out of 5 means it's going to be a staple in a solid strategy. And then a 5, well, that's a multi-deck staple or a core of the best performing deck. Now before I kind of jump in and talk about the actual cards, we need to talk a bit about the current metagame, which seems to be mostly dominated by Bant Ramp, Rakdos Sacrifice, Sultai Midrange, Jeskai Fires, Temur Wilderness, Mono Red, Azorius Control, Azorius Blink, Gruul Embercleave, and Rakdos Knights. Those are kind of the decks that I'd expect to see on a given day at the moment. Now, if a card in Ikoria fits naturally into those decks, then you're gonna give it probably a higher rating. Whereas if it's a really strong card, but it doesn't really fit into any of the new archetypes, well, it's kind of harder to rate. And then obviously there's a whole bunch of cards that you just wouldn't want to play in standard ever. So we'll just jump right in. I'm going to start with the Apex Cycle, the mutate creatures made up of wedge colors. First we'll start with Brokos, Apex of Power. Now I could see 1 or 2 copies of this in Sultai Midrange. It can beef up Nissa lands or any mana dorks that you might have drawn late game. At the end of the day, this is just a big butt. So who knows if it's even worth running. I'm going to give it 3 stars. Snapdax, at this rate, seems pretty good, but the color combination limits it a little bit. You do have to build a completely new shell to accommodate this, and Mardu just doesn't really exist at the moment. You'd have to build something completely new. And based off of that fact, I'm just going to give this a 2 star. Bedrock. Now, I have trouble trying to figure out what kind of deck wants this. Maybe you just play it for the front half, which is pretty solid, in some kind of aggressive Jeskai deck. And if you just get the odd mutate sometimes, it's alright. This obviously doesn't work in a non-creature deck since you need the mutate target. Returning a Teferi with this though does seem pretty solid. I'm going to give this one a 3. Now with Aluna, this is a pretty interesting effect that could actually spawn a whole new archetype, slamming fatties onto the board. Possibly a Temur ramp deck with all the largest creatures in standard and plenty of mana dorks to mutate onto. I reckon this could be a pretty solid strategy. I'm certainly going to try it out. 4 stars. Nethroi. The mutate cost on this is very high, but the front half is nice versus aggro at least. I can only really see this being played in a dedicated reanimator deck, which hasn't really made any waves so far. I'll just give this a 2. Running through a few more mythics, we have Chevel, Bane of Monsters. Now if you just look at this as a 1/3 death touch, this is going to go pretty far in giving you a really good defense against aggro and mid-range decks. If you're looking to play a late game green-black with a splash deck, then this is a great consideration. 4 stars. Fiend Artisan. Is this the new Tarmogoyf? Maybe. It could be a good option to put in mono black to tutor up Gary's. Definitely something you'd want to keep in mind for a toolbox strategy as well. I'll give this a 3. General Kudro, strong lord for human tribal, possibly it finds space in modern humans as a 1 or 2 of. In standard, Hero of Precinct 1 is still legal. We could see a list pop up around that again. Whether it will be good enough remains to be seen. 3 stars. Kinan Bonda Prodigy. Seems like an awesome card for any deck that uses Artifact Ramp. Activated ability may be too expensive for standard, but it's a similar idea to Illuna, I guess. I'll just give this a 2. Luca Coppercoat Outcast. This is a great card draw for mid-range strategies. It makes a nice anti-control card, and I could see it fitting well into Gruul. Lets you convert your useless mana dorks into big beaters as well. I'm just going to give this a 4 star. Luminous Broodmoth. There are some interesting combos for this card, even in Pioneer and Historic, but it's probably a bit too clunky, I think. It's a good value card for decks that want to sacrifice their creatures, and it's decent board wipe insurance as well. No current deck really wants this though. I think I'll just give this a 3. Narset with the Ancient Way. This card will end games in Limited, as all Mythics tend to do nowadays. In Standard, the effect is kind of okay. Obviously a nice thing to have against aggro with a controlling deck, possibly Fires or Super Friends, but it's not a massive haymaker and you can do better things with turn 4. I'll just give this a 3. Riel the Everwise. This is an Enigma Drake that swapped flying for turning your discarding into rummaging, from jumpstarting or from cycling for example. Is that good enough to bring back blue-red drakes? My guess is probably no, but it's definitely an improvement to the deck. 3 stars. Vivian Monster's Advocate. This seems very good to me. The ability to give you a buy one get one free deal on a creature makes this a card advantage machine, not to mention the static effect and a plus ability, making it so you'll always be adding to your board every turn. This is a great addition to any Green X beatdown deck. I'm giving Vivian 5 stars. Winota, Joiner of Forces. The build around clause on this seems kinda tough, requiring you to have a mix of tribes in your deck, but also wants non-humans attacking. There are obviously powerful hits with this, like Agent of Treachery, but the likelihoods seem way too hard to set up. I'll just give this a 1 star. Zalortha Strength Incarnate. This is a fun card, but at the end of the day, a 5 mana 7/7 trample probably won't quite cut it. I'll just give it 2 stars. Bonder's Enclave. A free card draw in a Stompy kind of deck, which is obviously really good. It wouldn't help you come back from behind like when your board's empty, but it's still definitely worth having a couple of copies in mono or 2 color decks. 3 stars. Colossification. The enters tapped clause means you'll want to give this flash somehow or fling the enchanted creature. Maybe put it on something hexproof? I know I'm going to lose to this at least once, but I really don't see it being played very much apart from Mega Brews. 2 stars. Crystalline Giant. Now this is a great mutate target. If you give this hexproof the first turn, you're pretty much free to do whatever mutation you like. Also, nice target for Colossification. Not to mention, this can just sit back and slowly get bigger until nothing can outclass it. 4 stars. Cub Warden. The rate for both halves of this just seems a little too high. I know that mutate can technically be repeatable, but I don't see a world where you can stack mutates beyond 1 or 2 creatures. So I don't really see this being a great use of your time. 2 stars. Death's Oasis. This is a great effect for animator and grave strategy decks, but I feel like this would make its biggest splash in EDH rather than standard. 2 stars. Dirgebat. Limited powerhouse, but shouldn't be too shabby in standard either. 6 is a lot to pay for a hero's downfall, but this is something you'd rather mutate onto than to mutate with. 3 stars. Dranith Magistrate. As with a lot of these white sideboard type cards, it might be a bit too narrow in what it hits in Standard. A good option for Eternal formats, but sideboard space is usually tight there. Just keep note in Standard if it hits Escape, Jumpstart, red draw effects like Frenzy, Luca, and Light Up the Stage, also adventure spells. So keep an eye out for the density of these effects and just keep this card in mind. I'll just give it a 2 stars for now. Now I think I'll just go through the Ultimatum cycle. All of these have pretty nice effects, but you obviously want to be ramping pretty heavily or cheating these out. Fires of Invention feels like a great home to cast these. If you can tutor for them with Fae of Wishes, that seems to be the best option to me. Eerie Ultimatum. Returning creatures, walkers, and anything in between means you should win the turn you play this. 3 stars. Emergent Ultimatum. Seems hard to tutor combos with this due to opponent choice, but getting 2 big fatties seems reasonably solid. Just 3 stars. Genesis Ultimatum. Again, slamming heaps of permanents on board, seeing a pattern here. This one could whiff a little harder than the previous 2, but I still think it's worth a 3 star. Inspired Ultimatum. Reminds me kind of like of one of those value explosions, but slightly discounted with a little bit of life gain. This sort of effect is a good way to get ahead from parity, which is why I kind of like this a lot. 4 stars. Ruinous Ultimatum. A one-sided planar cleansing is powerful. Timed right, this is great, but in a controlling deck, the cheaper options will often get you the desired result anyway. I'll just give this a 2 star. Bear in mind that all the ratings here tend to mostly be contingent on them being played as a Fae of Wish target. I could see maybe 1 or 2 of them being played, maybe like Inspired Ultimatum in other decks, but that's mostly where I see it being played. Now the Triumph cycle, I'm just going to 5-star all of these. The format looks set to be full of 3-color decks, and these are a must there. Now the big cycle, the Companions. As a whole, I believe that the deck building restrictions on these are a bit too restrictive across the board to make it worth losing a sideboard slot, but some of these are better than others. Nothing wrong with trying to play with these normally though. Garuda. Strong ETB, with the potential of giving you 3 bodies, at least 2 assuming you built your deck well. This could mean a deck could be brewed around this. Note that odd costed things, particularly 3, are very important in Standard right now. I reckon this will just be a 2. Zigantha. It's not hard to meet this requirement, but it seems hard to make use of its ability without casting X spells. 2 stars. Kahira. Elementals is already a deck. Does having a Lord really improve it that much? I feel like it won't, but it could still be worth including this. Could also just main deck it instead of playing it in the sideboard. 3 stars. Karuga. Really strong ETB effect here, but committing to not making a play until turn 3 is pretty rough. I'll just give this a 2 stars. Loris. Any super aggressive deck could make use of this, and it's obviously a great way to make a comeback. 3 stars. Lutri. In Standard, the requirement makes this no good as a companion, and expansion already fits the bill for this. 2 stars. Obosh. Feels like Torbrand fits this role already. I feel like it's not really worth running this at all. 1 star. Umori. Again, not feeling this card too much. It feels like it comes down too late to make any discount be relevant. 2 stars. Urion. This card is a trap. You are never going to get the consistency to support a synergistic strategy like the one this is pointing you to. But main deck it could be a good option for the Azorius Blink deck as a 1 or 2 of. 3 stars. Zerda. This makes it possible to produce a lot of mana with Grim Monolith, etc., but in Standard I don't really think any kind of brokenness like that exists. 1 star. Now for the Mythos Cycle. These are all quite solid, and good includes if you can pay all the colours. Mythos of Brokos. Kind of like a Demonic Tutor plus Regrowth. Definitely efficiently costed, and needs to be played in a grindy deck, but could definitely find a home similar to the old Masterminds acquisition decks. 3 stars. Mythos of Aluna. Great that you can copy any permanent. At worst it can remove an opponent's creature. 3 stars. Mythos of Nethroi. Murder is always good, but if you can pay the full cost of this, it's one of the most flexible spells in Standard. 4 stars. Mythos of Snapdax. Tragic Arrogance was a real player in Origins Standard. This card is no different. Although the mana cost is very specific, if you can make the mana work, this card will definitely help shore up any Mardu control list. 3 stars. Mythos of Vadrok. I'm actually not the most impressed by this, and it's the one I'm least inclined to play all colours for. For the cost and the amount of damage here, it's not really convincing me, and paying extra colours for a sleep effect is not really convincing me either. 2 stars. Evercool Phoenix. I'm gonna say this is too expensive to be worth running, and the mutate trigger doesn't appeal either. 2 stars. Extinction Event. There are just so many 4 mana board wipes in Standard right now, and this does not seem to be the best one at all. Maybe you could get a one-sided wipe from this, but I feel like that situation won't come up very much at all. 2 stars. Frontline Felidar. This has a big butt, which kind of helps against aggro, but I'm looking for more out of a 4-drop these days. 1 star. Gem Razor. If you're playing with a deck that can facilitate the mutate, then I wouldn't blame you for sideboarding this. The ability to play it and later mutate onto it to activate its ability makes it a bit of an upgrade over Thrashing Brontodon if you're specifically trying to mutate. 2 stars. Hunted Nightmare. The stats are obviously great here. The downside gets better the less creatures are out on board, obviously, so you might want to be willing to side this out pretty flexibly, especially if you're playing against creature decks, but you may find that there's nothing on board on turn 3 if you're on the play, or maybe you just put it on Goose or a Grazer. I'm going to give this a 4 stars. I'm going to call on this one. Kogla. A little bigger than Ravager Worm, with a little tougher mana cost. This could find a home in mono green, but I think it would be hard to ever get this indestructible in that deck. Maybe Heart's Desire? I'll just give this a 2 stars. Labyrinth Raptor. Lately I feel like Rakdos decks have been just making do with the 2-drops it has, but this feels like it's loaded up with enough stuff to make the cut. Paired with enough menace creatures, and you'll likely be getting in plenty of tough to block attacks. 4 stars. Lava Brink Ventura. This card is definitely no slouch. Odd seems like a good pick right now, maybe, but currently there's no home for this card. We may see an aggressive creature deck pop up in the coming weeks, but I don't really see it happening just yet. I'll just give it a 3 stars. Play it in the middle. Offspring's Revenge. I feel like when I reanimate something, I want the whole package, not just any ETB effects. That said, Dracoseth is a nice chunk of damage from this. I'll just give it a 2 stars. Quartzwood Crasher. This guy definitely gathers quite the herd if left unchecked. It's also reasonably costed, if a little colour hungry. Untapping your board intact is just kind of hard nowadays. 2 stars. Sea Dasher Octopus. Now, a curiosity with Flash is definitely something I'm in for, and Mono Blue was really hurting since Ixalan block rotated. This definitely kicks the deck up a bit. I'm going to give this a 4 stars. I reckon this could kick Mono Blue up. Shark Typhoon. Pay a little bit extra on Metallurgic Summonings and you get this meme card that could work as some kind of overcosted win con. The cycling is really what attracts me here, as for X equals 3 or less, it's basically a Flash Hydroid Crisis, which is definitely not bad. I reckon this gets cycled like 90% of the time. 3 stars. Skycat Sovereign. Blue White Flyers is currently something like tier 4, but this is a worthy addition to that deck. I mean, that's like kind of a fringe thing, so I guess I'll just give it 2. Slitherwisp. Blue Black Flash anyone? Soul type Flash maybe? The mana cost is a bit rough on this, but it's a darn good payoff for playing Flash. Too bad Flash is kind of on the downturn at this point. I think it just deserves a 3 stars. Song of Creation. I can see people decking themselves so fast with this card. Maybe think Experimental Frenzy with this one, but for fatties. There's no getting around the fact that you're discarding a lot of cards to this no matter what, but include some Escape, some Jumpstart, it might not be so bad. You know what, the more I look at this, the more I don't care about the downside. You know what, I'm just going to call this 5 stars, and you can send me to the chopping block if I'm wrong. The deck built around this is going to be mega strong. Ozolith. Super strong in EDH, even Pioneer with Hardened Scales decks. Don't really see any way to make this work in Standard though. 1 star. Titan's Nest. This enchantment seems great on the face of it, but it looks like wizards were just a little bit too cautious with this one. Don't get me wrong, Delve is great, but spending 4 mana initially to give your spells Delve just seems like a bad deal. 1 star. Unpredictable Cyclone. Well, this seems like heaps of fun to have on board, and everyone I've played EDH with knows I love to spin the wheel. But standard, I wouldn't really say this is worth it at all. 2 stars. Voracious Great Shark. Mystic Snake just got swole, but only hitting creature spells makes this a little bit too narrow for my liking, and holding up 5 mana for an Essence Scatter doesn't really float my boat. 1 star. Whirlwind of Thought. Obviously this is insane value once it gets on board in a control heavy deck. Probably don't want to tap out for this though. I know I was high on Song and not this, but I think they belong in entirely different decks, and this is a piece that I don't really think fits into the Jeskai puzzle. 2 stars. Yidoro the Wandering Monster. In a slow controlling deck this may find a home, but I don't think those kinds of decks can really see the light in this day and age. 2 stars. Now to the notable uncommons and commons that I think could make an impact. Now, Bastion of Remembrance. The fact that this doesn't say non-token piques my interest. I'll give it 3 stars. Blitz of the Thunder Raptor. The aforementioned Drake's deck could love this. Could see play. 3 stars. Dire Tactics. A lot of decks have life to spare nowadays, so I might want to cast this even if I don't have a human. Hero decks will be wanting this for sure. 3 stars. Cunning Nightbonder. This could definitely help bring Mono Blue Flash back from the dead. 3 stars. Fighters 1. This makes me want to try Feather again. Still might not be worth it though. 3 stars, tentatively. Heartless Act. Now this Doomblade variant does have some limitations. The fact that it destroys Miscellanes though makes me pretty happy to include this. 4 stars. Lead the Stampede. I'm a big fan of this card. I'm sure there are a few Stompy decks in Standard that would love a 3 mana draw 5. 3 stars. Parcel Beast. As if we didn't have enough ways to make a turn 3 Nissa. Here's another one. Putting this above a Grazer is going to be a pretty stable turn 2 play a lot of the time, and it's going to cause some broken turn 3s. The land even comes in untapped. 5 stars. Adventurous Impulse. A really solid card for creature heavy decks. This did start to fall out of favour when it was last in Standard though. I think I'll give it a 3 stars. Fire Prophecy. Small creature removal with a rummage attached? Pretty much. Sounds pretty good to me. 3 stars. Wilt. Is this the new naturalize of choice for the rest of time? At least until they make a slightly better one? I'll give this a 3 stars. Anyway, those are all my impressions. As I said, I'll be returning to this for the rest of the next set, and I'll see how much I got right, if anything. Catch you next time.